The chase had carried Robert Langdon and Sophie Neveu across borders, through cathedrals, secret libraries, and the guarded halls of history. Yet every step, every riddle solved, only led to a bigger question. What exactly was the Holy Grail? For centuries, the world imagined it as a golden chalice, the very cup used by Jesus at the Last Supper. Knights, kings, and poets had sung of its power. But Langdon reminded Sophie that legends often cloak truths in symbolic form. And the deeper they dug, the clearer it became. The Grail was not an object of gold. It was a story buried beneath centuries of silence. The cryptex unlocks its first secret. At a hidden refuge, Sophie and Langdon finally managed to open the cryptex. Inside was not the final answer, but another smaller cryptex nested like a Russian doll. Saunier had been clever, layer after layer, forcing them to prove their worthiness at each stage. The clue within spoke of a sacred feminine, a vessel, and a resting place hidden among the stones of history. The words hinted not at a cup, but at a woman. Langdon explained, in ancient symbology, the chalice shape, a V, was often used to represent femininity. The so-called Grail was a metaphor. It was not about wine, it was about bloodline. Mary Magdalene and the forgotten role. Here lay the heart of the mystery. According to suppressed gospels and hidden traditions, Mary Magdalene was not a mere follower of Jesus, but his closest companion. Some texts suggested she carried his teachings as deeply as, or even more than, the apostles. Others whispered she carried something else, his child. If true, the Grail was not a vessel made of stone, but a living bloodline, descendants of Christ himself. The Priory of Chaon, the group Saunier had served, had been tasked for centuries with protecting this truth and, possibly, the family that carried it forward. For Sophie, the revelation was staggering. Suddenly, her grandfather's riddles took on a different weight. Could it be that she herself was connected to this lineage? Was she part of the reason he had left behind such an elaborate trail? The suppressed Gospels, T. Bing, their controversial ally, laid out parchment copies of texts long excluded from the official Bible. Among them were writings known as the Gnostic Gospels, which painted Jesus' life in a different light. In these texts, Mary Magdalene appeared not as a secondary figure, but as a leader, a teacher, even a beloved partner. The Council of Nicaea in the 4th century, T. Bing argued, had standardized Christianity under Roman authority, discarding writings that did not align with their chosen narrative. Over time, the role of women in the early church was diminished.